G'day guys and welcome to the Boundary Riders YouTube channel. Today we're going to be starting a series of AFL history moments, and we'll be starting with the longest suspensions in AFL history. So we do have a few suspensions at this stage that have been 6 weeks. Now I'm going to specifically look at 3, and we will start at number 10 with Thomas Bugg. Now this suspension happened in 2017 against the Sydney Swans, and in a sickening blow behind the play, Tom Bugg, he was seen in an unprovoked attack to punch Callum Mills in the face, and you can see here the severity of the hit. And in an important game for the Melbourne Demons, Tom Bugg completely changed the perspective of this game, and the Swans went on to win, and Tom Bugg, at the end of the day, got 6 weeks for this hit. Next up, also receiving 6 weeks, was Toby Green, obviously an infamous player in the AFL. Now is the captain of the Giants, but back in the day, of course, mostly known for some big hits behind plays and some big hits with some big suspensions. The one I'm going to be talking about here was when he received 6 weeks for a bump on the umpire, which was in the elimination final against the Sydney Swans in 2021. He was seen to run past Matt Stevic, the umpire, gave him a little nudge, and received 6 weeks, which saw him miss the semi-final in 2021 and the first 5 games of 2022. Now, number 8, we have the final 6-game suspension, which was in the line in the sand game. This is one of the most memorable games in AFL history between Hawthorn and Essendon, as Hawthorn finally decided to take a stand against Essendon, and what brought over were some of the biggest melees that we've ever seen come to the game. Now, Richie Vandenberg was one of the most involved players in these fracas, and he was charged with multiple offences, which included striking Adam McVeigh, making some unnecessary and unreasonable contact to the leg of McVeigh, and also engaging in a melee. So the number of penalties handed down, Vandenberg received the most severe penalty, and after this game received the following 6-game suspension. Now, at number 7, unfortunately, we do not have footage of this suspension. However, the person who made this 7-game suspension is Stephen Baker, who has been known for a couple of suspensions in the past, and he's not the last time he's on this list. The Saints' actions that caused this 7-game suspension included a broken nose, lacerated lip, and a concussion to the docker, Jeff Farmer. There is no video evidence of the incident, thus the tribunal relied upon eyewitness accounts from other players and officials. Another reason for the length of Baker's ban was his previous history, as we mentioned a few moments ago, and the carryover point from past incidents. So at number 6, we have one of the most famous hits in AFL history, which is from Barry Hall. Now, he has been known for white line fever in his day, but this is probably the most famous suspension he has ever done, which is the hit on Brent Staker against West Coast Eagles in 2008. Now, he has since apologised to Brent Staker for this incident. However, this will always be a scar on Barry Hall's career, and making Brent Staker's career always being known for this devastating hit. So into the top 5 now, we have Dean Solomon, who got an 8-game suspension in 2008 versus Geelong. This was in his 2nd year after leaving Essendon to join the Dockers, and what happened was he elbowed Cameron Ling behind the play after he released a handball. Now, this actually resulted in a broken cheekbone and broken eye socket for Cameron Ling. Now, this 8-game suspension was the longest singular suspension since 1997. So next up, also 8 games, is one of the more famous ones in recent times, which was the hit from Andrew Gaff on Andrew Brayshaw. Now, this happened, of course, in a derby, and even though Andrew Gaff was never known as a brute or a player who would do anything like this in-game, very far off the ball, we saw Andrew Gaff hit Andrew Brayshaw in the face, which caused him to lose teeth, and it was even reported that he was not able to eat solid foods for a month, Andrew Brayshaw, which was absolutely insane. At number 3, with 9-game suspension, was Greg Williams way back in 1997 versus Essendon. Now, this actually stands as one of the more controversial suspensions in AFL history, where a Bombers player in Sean Denman was getting in a heated argument with a number of Carlton players. And what happened was Greg Williams was met by an umpire. Williams was seen to have pushed the umpire. Now, despite this not looking like much of an incident, he was actually given 9 games, as of course you were not supposed to be touching an umpire in any circumstance, let alone in any type of anger. So the AFL wanted to set an example and gave Williams the 9-game suspension. So at number 2 now, yet again, it is Stephen Baker, who received a 9-game suspension in 2010 versus Geelong. Now, this was actually the grand final rematch from 2009, where Stephen Baker and Steve Johnson had a bone to pick with each other. It all began when Johnson threw a wild elbow into the face of Baker after much pushing and shoving throughout the game. So from there, Baker would actually be seen to strike Steve Johnson multiple times. One of these hits actually included an injury to Steve Johnson's hand. So after a number of charges to Baker, he was suspended for a total of 9 matches, and subsequently Johnson actually received 3-game suspension at the time. And finally, at number 1, we have a 10-game suspension to Alistair Lynch back in 2004 against Port Adelaide in the grand final. So at this stage, of course, Brisbane were going to try and get their 4th straight premiership, but Port Adelaide stood in their way. And seen early in the game, we saw Alistair Lynch throw a bunch of punches towards his opponent, which was Darren Wakeland. Now in this clip, you can see they started wrestling and throwing the punches, and you can actually see that Jason Ackermanis went to intervene at some point, but then realised that these two had it covered. And even though Alistair Lynch actually retired after this game and never did serve the suspension, the AFL did hand down a 10-match suspension to Alistair Lynch. But guys, that is the top 10 longest suspensions in AFL history, so make sure to let me know down below if you believe that all of these suspensions were justified or the length was justified. Make sure to like this video as well, guys. Thanks for your support. That's all from us, so I'll catch you all next time.